672 AD. A fleet of nearly 1,000 Arab ships is closing in on Constantinople, and the most powerful empire left on Earth is about to fall in a single afternoon. Then the sea catches fire. Byzantine crews turn strange bronze tubes on the incoming fleet and unleash a liquid flame that clings to wood, to skin, even to open water, and keeps burning no matter how hard anyone tries to put it out. By nightfall, the invasion is over. The empire that should have died that day survives for another 800 years. The weapon is called Greek fire, and nobody alive today knows exactly how it was made. The formula was guarded so completely, kept from rival empires, foreign spies, even most of Byzantium's own soldiers, that when the empire finally collapsed in 1453, it disappeared for good. Historians are still guessing, more than 500 years later. That's how far people were willing to go to control a single machine. A recipe guarded harder than the empire's own throne. And that's only the start of the pattern. For the next 13 centuries, the machines that decided wars got stolen, copied, buried in secrecy, and fought over by the very people who invented them. Some of those men became legends. Others got erased so completely you'd never know they existed. Keep that in mind, because by the end of this, the fighting stops being about the machines at all and starts being about who gets remembered for them. For a long stretch after that, warfare barely changed. Swords, cannons, muskets, all improved slowly. None of them fought over the way Greek fire had been. Then, in 1884, in a workshop in London, an engineer named Hiram Maxim changed that all over again. Maxim wasn't even British. He was an American who'd moved to England chasing bigger opportunities, and what he built there was a gun that reloaded itself using nothing but the force of its own recoil. No hand cranking, no pausing to reset. It could fire over 10 rounds a second, faster than 10 riflemen shooting at once. European powers didn't hesitate. Britain, Germany, Russia, all of them raced to buy the design, and Maxim, ever the businessman, sold to nearly anyone willing to pay, sometimes to rival nations within months of each other. In colonial battles across Africa, small British units armed with a handful of these guns wiped out forces that outnumbered them by the thousands. Owning this machine decided the outcome of a battle before it even began. At the Battle of Omdurman in 1898, a handful of these guns helped a British-led force kill roughly 10,000 men in a single afternoon while losing barely 50 of their own. 20 years later, that same gun turned around and came home. The exact machine built to conquer someone else's continent ended up in the trenches of World War I, and that identical recoil-loaded design cut down hundreds of thousands of the same European soldiers who'd once treated it as a colonial miracle weapon. It never cared whose side it was on. It just kept firing. If the Maxim gun proved a single machine could decide a battle, the next one was built specifically to survive it. By 1915, machine guns had turned the fields of Europe into a stalemate, men dying by the thousands just trying to cross open ground. Britain's answer was kept so secret that even the workers assembling the first prototypes weren't told what they were actually building. To throw off spies, officials labeled the shipping crates as water tanks bound for Russia. The nickname stuck, and it's the only name most people know the machine by today. The first tanks rolled into battle at the Somme in 1916. Slow, prone to breaking down, and terrifying anyway. Terrifying enough to send German soldiers fleeing positions they'd held for months. Word of the machine spread fast, and so did the race to catch up. France built its own version within a year. Germany, caught flat-footed, rushed out a clumsy imitation so late in the war it barely mattered. Most people assume Britain simply invented the tank outright, working alone in secret. It didn't. French engineers had been sketching their own armored, tracked machines around the exact same time, working in near total secrecy, not just from the enemy, but from their own allies. Two countries were racing toward the same idea without even telling each other it existed. By the time Germany finally caught up in 1918, the war was already ending, which meant one of the most fought-over machines of the entire conflict arrived to a fight that was basically over. Secrecy about building a machine is one thing. What came next was secrecy about breaking one. After the First World War, a German engineer named Arthur Scherbius designed a cipher machine for businesses, something to keep commercial telegrams private. It looked unremarkable, a typewriter wired to a set of spinning rotors. The German military saw it, adopted it for their own communications, and eventually convinced themselves the resulting code was unbreakable. They were wrong, just not in the way anyone expected. Years before World War II even started, a team of Polish mathematicians led by Marian Rejewski had already cracked an early version of the machine, working in almost total secrecy from their own government's allies. When the threat of invasion grew too large for Poland to face alone, they quietly handed their findings over to the British. That's when Alan Turing and the codebreakers at Bletchley Park picked up exactly where the Poles had left off, eventually building machines of their own just to break the German one, fast enough to read enemy orders almost as soon as Berlin sent them. What stayed buried for decades was who actually got there first. Britain kept the entire operation classified until the 1970s, which meant the Polish mathematicians who cracked it first spent almost 30 years watching history hand the credit to someone else entirely. Every machine so far got fought over by nations racing to build it first. This last one got fought over by a nation trying to steal it after it already existed. By 1945, the United States had spent years and a staggering amount of secrecy building the atomic bomb under a project so classified that entire towns, like Oak Ridge and Los Alamos, were constructed from scratch and hidden from the public, and even from most of the American government itself. The bomb worked twice, and the war in the Pacific ended within days. The secrecy didn't stop there. It escalated. Soviet spies, including a physicist named Klaus Fuchs, who'd worked inside the American program itself, quietly funneled the bomb's core designs back to Moscow throughout the project. The result was a machine the Soviet Union wasn't supposed to have for another decade, tested successfully in 1949, years ahead of anything American intelligence had predicted. One machine, stolen piece by piece, kicked off a nuclear arms race that ended up defining the rest of the century. And this time, unlike every machine before it, the fighting was never really about who built it first. It was about making sure nobody ever got to use it again. From a fire recipe buried with a dying empire, to a gun sold to whoever could pay, to a code broken by mathematicians history nearly forgot, the pattern never really changes. Whoever builds the machine wins the moment. Whoever steals it wins the next 50 years. And somewhere in between, the men who actually did the inventing usually end up as a footnote, if they get remembered at all.